from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Unman Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour, Indian economy grows to one-year high of 7.8% in the April to June quarter. North Korea stages a nuclear strike drill to protest allied exercises, even as the Kremlin says Russia will deepen ties with North Korea. EU rejects seizure of power by military force in Gabon, calls for restraint from all parties. Nira Chopra eyes hat-trick of titles at the Diamond League in Zurich. Long jumper Murli Sri Shankar seeks redemption. North Korea says it's fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles to simulate nuclear strikes on military targets in South Korea. It's understood the move was made in response to a joint exercise involving a U.S. deployment and South Korea.
A strong show of force by North Korea. The dictatorship releasing images of a simulated scorched earth nuclear strike on targets across South Korea. 2 ballistic missiles fired in reaction to an allied exercise between the South and the US, which Pyongyang labeled a war rehearsal. Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio condemned the move.
The ballistic missile launched this time is also against a United Nations Security Council resolution, and we strongly condemn them. We have already lodged a protest against North Korea.
The White House was also critical.
This launch is in violation of multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions and possesses a threat to the DPRK's neighbors and international community. We remain committed to a diplomatic approach to the DPRK and call on DPRK to engage in dialogue, as we have for some time now. Our commitment to the defense of the Republic of Korea, Japan remains ironclad.
The North last test-fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles on July 24th. This latest round of coming just a day before the end of joint exercise between South Korea and the US.
The Air Forces of South Korea and the United States conducted live-fire exercises on Thursday as part of the ongoing Ulchi Freedom Shield drills. According to South Korea's Air Force, about 60 fighter jets were mobilized for the drills. It included simulated scenarios involving penetrating the enemy's air defense system and targeting key enemy objectives. The 2 countries began Ulchi Freedom Shield on the 21st of August, which is a joint large-scale military exercise designed to enhance their response to Pyongyang's nuclear and missile threats. North Korea routinely denounces the annual military drills. The allies have stressed that the exercises are only defensive. So tensions are rising in the Korean Peninsula. There have been 2 missile launches by North Korea yesterday, and this is in response to drills that are conducted every year by the United States and South Korea. Those drills got underway some time ago in August, and North Korea now launching 2 ballistic missiles in response. Also, a nuclear drill was carried out by North Korea, and this has ratcheted up tensions in the Korean Peninsula. Rajiv Nayan, Senior Research Fellow with IDSA, is with us. Mr. Nayan, after the ballistic missile launches by North Korea comes a nuclear strike drill to protest against allied exercises. If tensions were to keep rising like this, do you rule in or rule out the possibility of a nuclear conflagration?
I don't think there will be any kind of nuclear conflagration at the moment. But yeah, this is quite a tense moment in the region, especially in East Asia. North Korea has been continuously testing. It is on a testing spree. And this testing spree has been causing anxiety, tension in the in the region, and especially two countries of the region, South Korea and Japan. And Japan and South Korea have also been monitoring its missile developments. And interestingly, the release which has, or releases you can say, made by the two countries provide two different details of the test. One says 360 kilometer and second says that 400 kilometer. Japan says it is 400 kilometer range. So it is quite interesting. And they all maintain that it is nuclear capable missile, but whether they are going to do something relating to nuclear is slightly unclear. Second, this is because of the range, we can easily say that it is a tactical nuclear weapon kind of exercise, which has been, or test which has been done by North Korea.
Yes. Right. So you are saying that you don't rule in the possibility of a nuclear conflagration at this point in time. Maybe it's premature to talk about it. Is that what you're saying? Because Kim Jong-un has said that he won't surrender nuclear weapons, even if the country faced 100 years of sanctions. And to add to that, North Korea's new law authorizes preemptive nuclear strikes.
No, conflagration means what? First, we'll have to understand that. Are the other two countries, South Korea and Japan, are they also going to indulge in some kind of arms race or tit for tat kind of situation? That we are ruling out. What may happen? They are under the US protective umbrella. And that, as long as that protective umbrella is on the two countries, I don't think that they will be thinking of conflagration. As for North Korea is concerned, North Korea has been testing ballistic missiles in 2018. It announced that it would not be going for further tests. It will be shutting down the testing sites. Plus, it will be shutting down also the enrichment facilities, which it did not do. But since last 2 to 3 years, we have been hearing, like it had already conducted 6 nuclear tests, and the last nuclear test was in 2017. So generally, every year, like there is a scare, there is a kind of talk that soon North Korea will resume its nuclear test. But fortunately, it had not done in the past, and it may do it in the future. We cannot rule it out. But since 2017, at least it has been not testing its nuclear devices. We know that it had already done kind of booster fusion device. Many call it, or generally North Koreans claim that it is a hydrogen bomb test, but many doubt, not only in the Western countries, but others also doubt that whether it is a really hydrogen bomb test or not. But it is there. Many also believe that that particular test, which was conducted before, may be done on the behest of its proliferation partners such as China and Pakistan. So all these things are talked about, but as of now, I think that without using nuclear word, means nuclear warhead or nuclear test, it will be testing missiles, which it has been doing since last 2 years, especially last in 2020, a record number of tests it had conducted. And through that, it will be sending signals that, yeah, nuclear element may come in the region. If basically they tries to signal that whenever there is an exercise by United States in the region for North Korea or for South Korea or Japan. So it happens. So it has become a regular phenomenon, a routine kind of reaction from North Korea, and it wants it. Yeah.
Mr. Nayan, you had earlier referred to two countries, Pakistan as well as China. But here, if you bring in Russia at this stage, Russia has said that it will deepen ties with North Korea, and US says that North Korea could provide more weapons to Russia for use against Ukraine. In all of this, are Russia and North Korea coming closer together against the West as well?
Look, yeah, that is to an extent, it's true that these countries, especially China, Russia, and North Korea, they are anti-West. But if we see the pattern of interactions between Russia and North Korea, we don't find much evidence that Russia has been encouraging or Russia ever provided any kind of support to North Korea. Basically, it is a network which runs through China, and comes to Pakistan, and then it extends westward, means West Asia. So this has been broad pattern of proliferation network which we have been witnessing. But many will also talk about that North Korea, China, all had conducted hypersonic missiles. So hypersonics, many argue that the hypersonic missiles technologies are coming from Russia. But if you go through the literature, you'll find that China, or through China, it may have come to North Korea. There's many hypersonic technologies, and even West is endorsing. Washington Post has endorsed it. Many other think tanks and many other organizations are also bringing out, pointing out the fact that many of the US or even European labs and even universities are involved in providing hypersonic technologies to China without even their government knowing that technology is being readied and just transferred to China. So they are cracking down, and now we see many export control regulations, harsh export control regulations are being effected, being brought about. And it is American Gazette, which is called Federal Register, has been regularly publishing, and they have been updating so that China doesn't get it, and through China, North Korea doesn't get this hypersonic and other advanced, not just hypersonic missiles, other advanced technology which may just sharpen their arsenals in the strategic fields. So this is the situation. So Russia maybe, may not be, we can't rule out, but the United States and Western countries would definitely bring out the element of transfer done by Russia, because it will have to bring bad name to Russia also, considering the political game being played between the two sides. So I'm not so confident, but it may happen. So this is what I can say.
We'll leave it at that, Mr. Nayan. Thank you for your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Residents in the United States of Florida and Georgia are assessing the damage left behind by Hurricane Idalia. Authorities are investigating one unconfirmed storm-related traffic death. Idalia strengthened into a Category 3 hurricane before making landfall in Florida. DD India's Nick Harper sent us this report.
The full force of Hurricane Idalia lashes the Gulf Coast of Florida, turning streets into rivers, swamping cities, cutting off communities. Idalia smashed into the Big Bend region of the state, bringing wind speeds of more than 200 kilometers an hour, and more troublingly, storm surges 5 meters high.
That level of storm surge is life-threatening. Do not go outside in the midst of this storm. If it's calm where you are, it may be because you are in the eye of the storm, and those conditions will change very, very quickly. So wherever you are, hunker down and don't take anything for granted here. This is a very, very powerful storm.
The hurricane knocked out power for around 500,000 people as howling winds hurled seawater inland. Idalia is the first hurricane to hit this part of the state. But Florida is no stranger to some of the strongest storms that hit North America every year. Last September, Category 5 Hurricane Ian made landfall in southwest Florida, killing 149 people and wreaking more than $110 billion in damage.
If there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support of what they need. I don't think anybody can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore.
Officials deployed hundreds of rescue teams and emergency crews to the state ahead of the storm, but it's likely to be days before life returns to normal. The US government has promised extra assistance to the millions of people hit by the hurricane. But the real cost of the storm to people and properties won't become clear for some time to come, as Idalia makes its way up the east coast through Georgia and into South and North Carolina. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour, over 340,000 people affected across 22 districts of India's northeastern state, Assam. India is all set to host the G20 Summit in New Delhi on the 9th and the 10th of September. Indian Space Agency releases an image of the Chandrayaan-3 lander on its way to the South Pole of the Moon.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Meanwhile, China is warning residents as Typhoon Saola approaches the southeastern coastal line. It's due to make landfall between Hulai County in Guangdong to Hong Kong. Chinese Railways has suspended several trains and people in the coastal areas are being told to stay away from the coastline. The country has already taken a hammering with heavy rain and flooding over the past 2 months. As part of a continued commitment to enhance maritime governance, a new agreement has been signed between the United States and the island country of Palau. As per the bilateral agreement, U.S. Coast Guard ships can enforce regulations inside Palau's exclusive economic zone on behalf of the nation without a Palauan officer being present. The U.S. military is also in talks with the northernmost islands of Philippines to develop a civilian port. The proposed port will be located 200 kilometers from Taiwan and aims to boost American access to the island. Tensions have been simmering in the Indo-Pacific region as China enforces its maritime claims and the U.S. and its allies push back. U.S. President Joe Biden has approved a historic military transfer to Taiwan under the Foreign Military Financing Program, normally used for sovereign states, according to a notification sent to the U.S. Congress. The first ever U.S. military transfer is up to $80 million in foreign military financing funds in support of Taiwan. Taiwan's defense ministry thanked the U.S. but did not give any details about this military aid. China has repeatedly complained to the United States about military aid and sales to the island. Its defense ministry has said that the U.S. military must stop all forms of military collusion with the island. U.S. Federal Emergency Management provided an update to President Joe Biden about the hurricane response.
I did just have an opportunity to brief the President on our current response efforts for Hurricane Idalia, which, as all of you know, made landfall early this morning. While we were in there, the President contacted Governor DeSantis to let him know that the federal family continues to be there to support him. The governor expressed that all of his needs are met currently. The President reiterated that if anything is needed from the federal government, we will be able to support, and we have over 1,000 personnel currently deployed, prepared to support not just Florida, but all of our states that are in the path as needed.
The Central African Regional Bloc has called for restoration of constitutional order in Gabon following a military takeover. It follows Gabon's military naming Republican Guard Chief General Brice Oligui Nguema as the country's transitional leader. Meanwhile, the European Union says there are currently no plans to evacuate EU citizens from Gabon. Abhishek Bose has more.
Hundreds of people took to the streets in Gabon's capital, Libreville, to celebrate and cheer for the military officers after the country's army overthrew the government and seized power. Waving the national flag, people celebrated the military junta's takeover and said this was a new dawn for Gabon's independence. The country's military ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba, who won the elections and was seeking a third term of power, alleging betrayal and embezzlement during his long-time rule. Now, the military junta takeover in Gabon is a break from 56 years of rule by Ali Bongo's family.
Faisant suite à la réunion de ce jour, à laquelle on
all the commanders-in-chief and chiefs of staff, as well as the generals in second section of the Gabonese Republic, were present for the meeting. General Brice Oligui Nguema was unanimously appointed chairman of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, president of the transition.
Unanimité, président du Comité pour la Transition.
President Ali Bongo has called on people to make noise in his support after being put under house arrest.
I'm Ali Bongo Ondimba, President of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, For the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned the coup in Gabon and called for an inclusive and meaningful dialogue.
The Secretary-General reaffirms his strong opposition to military coups. The Secretary-General calls on all actors involved to exercise restraint, engage in an inclusive and meaningful dialogue, and ensure that the rule of law and human rights are fully respected. He also calls on the National Army and security forces to guarantee the physical integrity of the President of the Republic and his family. The United Nations stands by the people of Gabon.
Besides the United Nations, the European Union and France, which is Gabon's former colonial ruler, have also condemned the coup. There have been 9 coups in the past 3 years in former French colonies: Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Chad, Niger, Tunisia, and now Gabon. Most recently, Niger had experienced a coup when the military junta seized power, attracting international criticism. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
Meanwhile, there are no plans to evacuate EU citizens from Gabon. That's what European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has said.
Look, the whole area, starting with Central African Republic, then Mali, then Burkina Faso, now Niger, maybe Gabon, it's in a very difficult situation.
DD India correspondent Chris Okamringa joins us live from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Chris, is pressure mounting on the coup leaders from the West to reinstate the overthrown president, and is that making any difference?
Well, there is a lot of excitement by the people in Gabon about this coup that has been taken over by the military officers. People are saying they're fed up of the 56-year rule of the Bongo dynasty. And so there is a lot of excitement despite the condemnation from the European Union, the United States, France, and the African Union. People want to continue, they want a change in government. They're saying that this country is rich in minerals, but the leaders in power have not been, using that wealth that they have got to develop the country. And so they want to see a change. And the new leader who has been announced, the transition leader, Brice Nguema, said that he is ready to restore order in the country and ensure that there's equity in the country and that people start living a better life.
Chris, can you also tell us more about the transitional leader, General Brice Nguema?
Yes, so General Brice Oligui Nguema is a 48-year-old army officer. He's had a long stay in the army in Gabon, and he had his training in Morocco, and he was also a defense attaché of the Gabonese embassy in Senegal. And in 2019, he was made the leader of the Presidential Guard that is supposed to defend President Ali Bongo, who is his cousin. But then he joined the rest of the soldiers to announce this coup and say that the government hasn't been leading the country very well. He is regarded as a very experienced officer, and many soldiers have a lot of confidence in him leading this transition and making some changes that will ensure that there's a better way of leading the government. Already he has issued a statement saying that there are going to be some officials who will be prosecuted. One of them is the son of Ali Bongo, Nuruddin Bongo, who had a lot of wealth. He was the leader of one of government organization, and so they said that he's going to face charges of treason, corruption, and a number of other charges. They have also listed a number of other government officials who are supposed to face prosecution.
Chris reporting from Congo. Still to come on DD India News Hour, India is all set to host a global AI conference in October. Former Energy Secretary Grant Shapps is UK's new Defence Minister.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change. Tales of Sustainable Solution. This series is going to tell stories of such changemakers. Watch Changemakers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. A recap of the top stories. India's gross domestic product for the first quarter, that is April to June quarter of the ongoing financial year, accelerates to 7.8%. North Korea conducts a simulated scorched earth nuclear strike on targets across South Korea. Central African Regional Bloc calls for restoration of constitutional order in Gabon following a military takeover. Over 70 people have been killed and over 40 injured in a massive fire in a 5-story building in South Africa's Johannesburg. Firefighters are engaged in extinguishing the fire and evacuating people. Several ambulances are on the spot to take the injured to the hospital. DD India correspondent Mark Roughton joins us now from Cape Town. Mark, are efforts still on to recover bodies like you told us last time?
Efforts are continuing to seek out bodies in the building. Emergency workers had worked their way through to the 5th floor, but since then a canine unit or several canine units have been sent in with dogs to try to pick up any other signs of deceased people. The hope to find anyone surviving was abandoned several hours ago already. It's a tragic scene inside. Many obstacles for those who would have been trying to escape the blaze. It's been described interior as an informal settlement pretty much that has been built within this building, and as a result of that, many walls and doors and even in some cases gates that may have been locked, which would have blocked people's access. Reports from eyewitnesses as well of those who did escape, some of them escaping through windows, using sheets to climb down out of higher stories in the building. But at this point, the death toll is sitting at 73, and authorities have confirmed that 12 of those deceased are children. So a tragic day, and something that happened extremely quickly despite rapid response from emergency services. The fire was extinguished relatively quickly, but because of the conditions within the building, it was clearly very difficult for those who were trapped inside to escape in time. The expectation is that there were probably around 200 people living in this building.
It's indeed a tragic day. Has any investigation been ordered into the cause of the fire yet?
Authorities are still trying to establish the cause of the fire. Speculation is that it was very likely to have been an open flame, perhaps a candle. Buildings such as this one would not have had access to electricity or running water, and so those who were living there would have to rely on fossil fuels to provide light and to cook. So very likely, being that time of night, that it was perhaps a candle. But this has not yet been confirmed, and authorities are still trying to establish exactly what the cause of the fire was.
Mark Rowton reporting from Cape Town. European Union foreign ministers are meeting in Spain to discuss their response to last month's coup in Niger, including possible sanctions, but the country's military rulers remain undeterred. They've announced that French Ambassador Sylvain will no longer have diplomatic immunity, and the police has been instructed to expel him as well. The instability in the West and the Central African countries will be a major theme of the informal gathering in the medieval city of Toledo, along with discussions on the war in Ukraine. Hassoumi Massoudou, the foreign minister of Niger's ousted government, and Omar Touré, the head of the Commission of West Africa's main regional bloc, ECOWAS, will attend the talks. Earlier, EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said that the European Union is moving ahead with the legal groundwork to impose sanctions on members of a junta that seized power in Niger, adding the EU will aim to mirror any measure taken by ECOWAS.
The ministers reiterated our will to support African solution for African problems. And it means that we will support ECOWAS. We have expressed this will from the first moment of the coup. It's up to them to take initiatives and decisions in order to counter this military coup. And we will follow, trying to implement the same kind of sanctions that they have decided. We are moving forward for an autonomous sanctions regime to take measures against the putschists. Work has already started, and tomorrow the Foreign Affairs Ministers will advance on that.
Now some action on G20. India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has once again underlined the relevance of India's G20 presidency in a changing global order. He was speaking at a function at the Hindu College, Delhi University.
How we are today, the generosity of India, when you say that in G20, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, when we say one earth, one family, one future. The world believes that. They do not think this is an empty slogan made for a conference. They actually have seen in the behavior of India.
Dr. S. Jaishankar also said that G20 Summit will be the baseline for India becoming a developed nation by 2047. He also talked about India's achievement in space exploration with the success of Chandrayaan-3 mission.
That when one day you will all look back, you will all remember 2023. 2023 as a big year for India, as a year when our G20 presidency put us on a different place in the map of the world. And that is not just a memory I want you to have. I want you to think of that as a baseline from which all of you then took this country over the next 25 years during the Amrit Kaal to the goal of having a Viksit Bharat. that topic of conversation was the Chandrayaan landing. And the most, to me, I mean, one was, you know, it's like you feel you are on a big stage, something big has happened in your country, you're already like a little bit walking a little bit taller and higher. But the greatest satisfaction for me that day was this sense from all the leaders that India has done it, but we, you know, the leaders of Africa, of Latin America, of Asia, we also see this as something as motivating, as you know, it is your success, but we also feel somewhere it is our success.
India is all set to host the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi on the 9th and the 10th of September. World leaders will arrive in New Delhi to attend the summit. New Delhi is gearing up for the mega event. The security is beefed up and public holidays have been announced in the national capital from the 8th to the 10th of September. Muktesh Pardeshi, the Special Secretary and the Head of Operations and Logistics of India's G20 Secretariat, said that a variety of different dishes are being prepared to showcase the regional cuisine of the country, and street foods of India as well as exposure to millets is what is to be expected.
From the Government of India, we will be offering meals at the convention center. Variety of dishes being served, but millet will find a prominent place in the menu. The chefs are working to develop different kinds of regional cuisine. The overall philosophy is that we should have exposure to street foods of India. We should have exposure to millets, and we should, the delegates should also experience different regional cuisines of India.
Speaking on the preparations for the upcoming G20 summit, Muktesh Pardeshi stressed that India will highlight its democratic traditions and artistic splendor.
We have a twin agenda. We showcase Indian culture, crafts and cuisine. We are going to showcase progress in the field of digital sector. We want to showcase modern face of India.
Meanwhile, the Principal Secretary to Prime Minister of India, Dr. P.K. Mishra, chaired the 9th meeting of the G20 Coordination Committee on Wednesday. The Principal Secretary took stock of arrangements for the G20 New Delhi Leaders Summit, including logistical, protocol, security and media-related arrangements. It was noted that work on the ground and on-site at Bharat Mandapam was proceeding satisfactorily. For the first time, a mobile app has been made for G20, and that's called G20 India. It's available for download both on Android and iOS. G20 delegates and members of the media will also witness Digital India firsthand through the Innovation Hub and Digital India Experiential Hub, which are being set up at Bharat Mandapam. India's gross domestic product grew by 7.8% in the April to June quarter of the current financial year, compared to a growth of 6.1% in the previous January to March quarter of the previous financial year of 2022-23. According to official data shared by the National Statistical Office, the agricultural sector witnessed a growth of 3.5%, marking an improvement from the 2.4% that was recorded in the same period of the financial year 2022-23. Growth of 8 key infrastructure sectors rose to 8% in July 2023 compared to 4.8% in the same month last year on expansion in production of coal, crude oil and natural gas. India's government has called a special parliamentary session next month but hasn't revealed what will be covered. The session will take place between the 18th to the 22nd of September with 5 sittings during that time frame. The monsoon session of Parliament concluded earlier this month and saw frequent disruptions in opposition parties moving a no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world. India is set to host a global AI conference in October. The first Global India AI 2023 will bring together the best and brightest players, researchers and startups together to showcase India's AI sector. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is vowing to introduce a raft of measures to help the fishing industry hit by China's ban on Japanese seafood. Kishida made the promise during a visit to Fukushima Prefecture fish market. It follows the release of treated radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear plant. NASA scientists are preparing for the arrival of a spacecraft carrying samples from Bennu, which is a skyscraper-sized asteroid 200 million miles from Earth. NASA's OSIRIS-REx spacecraft reached Bennu in 2018 and departed in May 2021 on a 2-year journey back to Earth. Australian schools are helping preserve some of the country's endangered indigenous languages. Australia has some of the highest rates of language loss in the world, but efforts are underway in and around a coastal town 500 kilometers north of Sydney to maintain traditional knowledge and language links to pass down to the future generations. Russia has vetoed the United Nations Security Council draft resolution that would have extended sanctions for 1 year on Mali. This means that sanctions on Mali are now set to expire today. Independent UN sanctions monitors reported to the UNSC earlier this month that Mali's troops and its foreign security partners, which are believed to be Russia's Wagner mercenary group, are using violence against women and other grave human rights abuses to spread terror. Independent monitoring by the United Nations in Mali will also expire.
We are convinced that the adoption by the Council in this, which flouts Mali President Ibrahim Boubacar's desire to get rid of the sanctions regime, will just undermine the sanctions regime and it will not help the Malian peace process. It would just further antagonize the parties.
The United States and the UK say they deeply regret Russia's decision, adding that the move threatens peace and security in the entire region.
The Council's failure to agree on the urgent and necessary renewal of Mali's sanctions regime due to Russia's actions threatens peace and security, not just in Mali, but the entire region.
The United Kingdom deeply regrets Russia's reckless use of the veto. This will reduce the Council's oversight and engagement on Mali's peace process at a critical juncture.
The British government named former Energy Secretary Grant Shapps as the country's new defence minister. He has replaced Ben Wallace, who said he wanted to step down after 4 years in the role. The defence role will be Shapps' 5th government job over the last year. He has served in 4 different ministries: Transport, Interior Affairs, Business, and then at Energy and Net Zero. After being appointed, Shapps reiterated Britain's support for Ukraine against Russia. Ben Wallace, who had been touted as a potential successor to NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, had taken a leading role in shaping Britain's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year. Time for another breather. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Nira Chopra eyes hat-trick of titles at the Diamond League in Zurich. Pia Sundhage has stepped down as the coach of Brazil women's national football team. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh kick off their Asia Cup campaign at the Palau International Cricket Stadium in Sri Lanka.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munun Bhattacharya. Time now for all the sports action with my colleague Deepika. And Deepika, can we expect our golden boy Nira Chopra to get a hat-trick?
Absolutely, we are looking forward to it as he will be action in Zurich tonight. As the newly crowned javelin world champion, Nira Chopra is now looking forward to a hat-trick of Diamond League victories this year, after having finished first in Doha in the month of May and Lucerne in the month of June. This will be Nira Chopra's first Diamond League meeting as the world champion, along with India's long jumper Murli Srishankar in Ferry. In tennis, Casper Ruud was stunned by China's Zhang Zichen, while Dominic Thiem was forced to retire due to illness. This and much more in our US Open tennis wrap. Let's take a look.
American 6th seed Coco Gauff delivered a convincing 6-3, 6-2 win over Russia's Mira Andreeva in a battle of teenage talents. Gauff, whose lead up to the year's final Grand Slam included hardcore titles in Washington and Cincinnati, converted 4 of her 5 break points opportunities and surrendered her serve just once during the 76-minute match in Arthur Ashe Stadium. Caroline Wozniacki claimed the biggest win of her comeback and a spot in the third round on Wednesday as the Danes' Grand Slam adventure continued with a 7-5, 7-6 upset of 11th seed Petra Kvitova. Having retired in 2020 to raise a family and playing in just her third event since returning to action, Wozniacki turned back the clock to come out on top in the battle of 33-year-old Grand Slam champions. The last time Wozniacki beat a top 20 ranked opponent was at the 2018 WTA Finals when she took down the world number 5 Kvitova. Elena Rybakina advanced to the third round after Alia Tomljanovic was forced to withdraw from a second round match due to a knee injury. After having one of the best seasons of her career last year, the Australian was forced to withdraw from her home Grand Slam early this year and subsequently from the Wimbledon also. Two-time Australian Open champion Belarusia's Victoria Azarenka has crashed out of this year's US Open after losing to Lin Zhu of China in the second round on Wednesday. Zhu triumphed over the former world number 1 straight sets of 6-3, 6-3. China's Zhang Zizhen became the first man to beat a top 5 opponent since the introduction of the ATP rankings in 1973 by stunning last year's runner-up Casper Ruud 6-4, 5-7, 6-2, 0-6, 6-2. Zhang, ranked 67th in the world, had come through another 5-setter to beat American JJ Wolf in his opener and showed similar resolve against world number 5 Ruud en route to securing the biggest victory of his career. Frances Tiafoe advanced to the third round to keep home hopes alive that an American player will be crowned champion at the Flushing Meadows. Tiafoe, who reached the semi-finals last year, breezed past Sebastian Ofner 6-3, 6-1, 6-4. Tiafoe did not drop serve in the match and sealed a victory when he broke Ofner for a 5th time after the Australian's forehand went wide. Dominic Thiem was forced to retire from the US Open with what appeared to be an illness after worrying scenes at the Louis Armstrong Stadium. The former world number 3 lost the opening set to Ben Shelton in a tiebreak and left the court before forfeiting the match. Sports Desk, DD India.
In the latest development in soccer, Pia Sundhage has stepped down as the coach of Brazil women's national team. The decision comes after the South Americans suffered their earliest World Cup exit since the year 1995. Brazil failed to get past the group stage after winning just one of their 3 games. Pia took over as Brazil manager back in the year 2019. She had 1 year left on her contract and was due to coach the team at the upcoming Paris Olympics. Sundhage led Brazil in 57 matches with 34 victories, 10 defeats and 13 draws. So that was a quick wrap from the world of sports. Back to Munna.
Thanks, Deepika, for that roundup. Time now to take a look at some other news stories. Over 340,000 people remain affected across 22 districts of India's northeastern state, Assam. The Brahmaputra River continues to flow above the danger mark, while its tributaries have maintained a rising trend. According to the Assam State Disaster Management Authority, 818 villages have been affected across the state. In Morigaon district alone, 105 villages have been hit by the deluge. The Indian Army demonstrated its firepower by conducting maneuvers at the Pokhran Field Firing Range in India's northwestern state of Rajasthan. The exercise was held near the India-Pakistan international border. It was witnessed by the Brazilian Army commander who was on a 6-day visit to the South Asian country to bolster ties. The Brazilian Army commander earlier met India's Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan. In a moment of pride, Indian surgical oncologist Dr. Ravi Kannan has been announced as the distinguished recipient of the Hero for Holistic Healthcare Award on the 65th anniversary of the Raymond Magsaysay Award Foundation. He stands as the sole awardee from India this year. The formal presentation ceremony of the Raymond Magsaysay Awards will be held in November in the Philippines. That's it then in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, which is formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.